Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy intro to Unit 3. This week, we're going to be talking about program design or designing your training. This is a great topic. This is probably one of my favorites because I love putting the training together. Doing the analysis and the needs assessment, those are critical components of having an effective training program. But now we're really going to get into the meat of the training when we're talking about training design. And one thing I want to say about needs assessment is I was thinking about it this week and reading your responses and looking at what's what. I thought about something called the Johari window. It's Johari. And it's something you might want to look at. And it's how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. And in one of the quadrants of the Johari window, it talks about you don't know and others don't know. It's this hidden spot in you that no one knows about. So you don't know, they don't know. And you may never know about yourself in that area. And how I'm going to relate that to a needs assessment is sometimes we don't know that we don't know. I don't know what I don't know about doing brain surgery. I know I don't know anything about it. And I don't have the knowledge, the skills, or the aptitude to do it. But there are some things that I know that I don't know. I don't know everything about Excel. I don't know everything about patient safety. I don't know everything about I love to cross stitch. I don't know everything about cross stitch. I don't know how to do all of the stitches. You don't know everything about everything in your career. So it's that I don't know that I don't know. That gets to be hard because you can do a needs assessment and it may not give you back what you need to design a program. So sorry, I had to pause there. The dogs wanted to come back in. It's very, very hot outside. So anyway, but even if you're doing a needs assessment from, let's say, a leader's point of view, and you're asking the leader what trainings or education do their people need, they may not know. They may think someone is performing okay because they're able to bluff, and they don't know, or they don't know what's coming down the path next because there may be new software coming in, and they don't know, they have not done an assessment yet of what people need to know. I hope that that made sense, that whole statement. But sometimes a needs assessment can go so far, but sometimes it takes digging a little deeper and a little more experience with the people who are going to be involved to find out really where the training needs to go. It's ever evolving is what I want to say about that. The other thing I want to say about it is when you do on-the-job training, this is, I'm sure you've had this experience, I've had this experience. I can train someone appropriately on using, let's say, software, but then they learn their shortcuts. Like I have my own shortcuts. And so then that person trains the next person. They teach the shortcuts. And then that person learns their shortcuts, and they train the next person, and they learn the shortcuts. So that by the time you get 5 or 6 people down the row, train, cascaded down, it looks nothing like the original training looked, like it was intended to roll out. People tend to do that. We tend to shortcut. We tend to make our own ways of doing things because we're frustrated. So with that, I want to move into chapter 5. And there's one thing I wanted to point out to you guys as we're looking at this. And I didn't do a PowerPoint this week because your assignments were pretty straightforward. On table 5-6 on page 208 of your book, there's a detailed lesson plan and an agenda. And I'd like to talk with you guys this week about the appropriate time frames for various parts of a training activity. My take on it and what I have learned and experienced is the adult, and we know this, the adult learning span has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter because we all are tied to this. So you can see the crack on my screen. Tied to our phones. We're tied to social media. We're tied to technology. We take things in real quick snippets. That's why infograms are really nice. Short, quick ways to teach things. People do not have the attention span to sit for an hour-and-a-half lecture. I know when I have to sit in an hour-and-a-half lecture, I get very, very antsy. You've got to break it up. And what I've heard is you've got to change the topic or bring in new information every 5 to 7 minutes. So when you see an agenda that has something blocked out for, like this one is 8:50 to 10, that's okay, but it needs to have some interaction. You just cannot sit and listen to lecture for that long. It doesn't work that way anymore. Think about in school when the teacher would lecture for an hour. You'd be like, okay, gotta move. Interspersing activities is vitally important to learning. So as you're working on your transfer of learning presentation and responding to the discussion question, I want you to keep some of these things in mind. Transferring skills and strategies for reaching the goal, knowing what the goal is of the learning and the teaching, having peer support. And one of the other things I want to talk about was time for learning, time for education. It's very difficult for people to take time away from their job, especially if they're busy, to go to education, because what's going on in their mind? They're worried about what's not happening or what is happening back on their job and what they're going to find when they go back. So you've got to make the training meaningful in that way. And I know you've experienced that, where you're in a class setting and you know the information's important, but at the same time, again, emails going off, texts are going off, you're getting phone calls, constantly called out. It inhibits the learning. So you need to find ways to allow for the transfer of learning. And I've also read and learned that with adults, you have to say the same thing 7 times in 7 different ways. We would go over the mission statement, and I'm sure in your company, you've gone over the mission statement over and over and over again. And you ask someone what the mission statement is, and they go, well, it's got to make the training where it sticks, especially when it's critical information that could impact safety, health, financial stability. You've got to find a way to make the training stick. So learning is important, using different types of learning techniques, because there are people who are auditory learners. There are people who are visual learners. There are people who are kinesthetic learners. There are people who are a combination. And then people who have learning challenges that you may not know about. It is possible that you could run across a learner who cannot read, who does not have the ability to read, especially if it's an older person, or English is a second or third language. You've got to be able to face those challenges. So I wanted to talk a lot about that today, because this is a vitally important part of the foundation of learning. This is where you really start to interface with the learner. So as we work on it this week, you guys are going to be putting together a PowerPoint. Use the best practices for PowerPoint. PowerPoint has been way overdone. People are tired of PowerPoint. Death by PowerPoint. That's what you call it. So think about how you can make it creative. I'm not adverse to moving graphics in a PowerPoint, but too much moving graphics will make you sick. And I know in an upcoming assignment, we're going to talk about Prezi. I used Prezi once. I made everybody in the room motion sick because I had too much movement in it. So we'll talk about that this week. We'll talk about PowerPoint, and we will carry on. So Unit 3, if you have any questions, let me know. You guys are great. Your answers have been spectacular on the discussion board. I'm looking forward to reading your analysis of the credit union case study, and we will carry on from there. Have a wonderful week. Hopefully you're getting a little bit cooler weather. It was 102 degrees here on Friday. So hopefully you're getting a little bit of a cool break. And again, keep on keeping on. I know sometimes you get tired and you get a little bit discouraged, but keep on, keep your eye focused on the goal. Know where you want to go. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, take care, and have a wonderful week.